Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV Alternative Media Television, and we have a huge market rout upon us. This is a must-watch video. Of course, I've been warning about this for years, and now we are seeing it move into fruition. We have a massive warning from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. They must watch my videos because they are warning of an economic Armageddon unlike anything we have ever seen. I'll put the link to the article in the box below. They are warning that trillions and trillions of dollars will suddenly be erased from the U.S. and global stock markets overnight. And not only potentially could there be a run on the banks, but also a very real run and bankruptcy of public pensions. Right? Think about all the firefighters out there, police officers, government workers, postal, teachers, academia, everybody that depends on this socialist state, which, by the way, is absolutely bankrupt and can't even afford to sustain its current growth rate. And I think this is going to be a massive problem in the future. So for all those people in America, and worldwide for that matter, counting on socialism as the solution. You know, we see this with government pensions today, dollar for dollar matching when the whole thing is in debt. And it's being paid by a tax base that's not even there. We see the same thing with Social Security today and Medicare. In fact, there's a good chance people like me, I'm 37 years old, will never, ever receive a dime from Social Security. So why do we pay into it? You can clearly see this from the actual demographic shifts and the actual base of money that isn't there because it's not worth the paper, of course, that it's printed on. So I see a massive, massive economic collapse on the horizon. Of course, all of this is completely artificial growth. It's been artificial bailouts, stimulus, and funny money that's basically created this situation in the first place. Not to mention that there's only a handful of tech companies that dominate the averages when looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and of course, or S&P 500, or the Russell 2000. And especially when we compare this to gold, real money, tangible wealth, physical bullion, you'll see that really the American people have lost the last few years. There have not been an economic recovery at all. Also, I find it amazing with these trade tensions with China, it's as if Americans and the rest of the world, America's enemies, it's as if they think that this is not going to have real world, real physical war repercussions. Of course it will. In fact, the United States placed an oil embargo on Japan right before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And that looks mild compared to what's going on now. As we see the mainstream media propaganda machines spout off rhetoric when it comes to the China and Chinese tensions, when looking at places like the South China Sea, what's going on with the Trump administration as they negotiate new terms and they negotiate and attempt to dictate a new world order, a new system of governance, a new monetary system, as the rest of the world, of course, I've been over this ad nauseum, is pushing for a new reserve currency. That's why China, Russia, and the BRICS nations have set up competitor banks to the IMF and the World Bank. And it's the IMF. It is the Western-backed IMF, U.S. and her allies, that, of course, are warning of this epic rout and epic collapse. So my point is, there's going to be real-world repercussions and real-world physical war as a result of what you're seeing today. You can see this in the headlines. Also, we have a major story. I'll probably save this for a video in and of itself because I think it's worth probably doing a separate video on it. But we have a biblical storm coming in right now. Hurricane Michael with winds of up to 150 miles per hour. It is a Category 4. We've only had a handful of those pretty much in U.S. history since like the 1800s or something like that. And it is supposed to be the worst storm ever to hit the Florida Panhandle in history. So it is truly the storm of a century. And we see this with the birth pains occurring worldwide right now as these confluence of events keep and continue increasing and magnifying in their intensity. So we have some 500,000 people in the Florida Panhandle region that have actually been ordered to evacuate. Of course, this raises fears of martial law and these kinds of things, as pretty much that is martial law. Being forced to evacuate is technically martial law. Yes, there are some people staying, choosing to weather the storm, which is probably not a good idea. Anyone that can't get out of there, obviously our prayers are with those folks. But the point is, we have the confluence of events right now, whether or not this is economic, natural in these weather events, it is spiritual. We see all of this coming together in a very, very meaningful way. And to me, this is the apex point of which the crisis really, truly hits. And, you know, one piece of advice I'd like to give today, this is my opinion. Of course, go seek financial advice yourself. This is not investment advice, but it would be of my opinion, for those of you that are government workers, that have government pensions, please self-direct your pensions if possible. If you can self-direct your investments, you've got a much better chance of surviving the economic storm ahead. I would also strongly consider that you invest in gold and silver. More importantly, take my course, because it's really about education first. And I would consider not only doing that, but allocating a portion of your investment assets into physical bullion. I go over all this in my course: how to avoid government confiscation, what I expect ahead, where I think pricing is going to go, how to do all of it. I mean, it really is a blueprint and a roadmap to preserve your family's assets going forward in what we see coming. And it's not just me warning about this. There are very smart people in academia warning about this as well. Whether or not it's Mr. Shiller, founder of the Case-Shiller Index from Yale University, I think it is. We see warnings from the IMF. We're seeing warnings. We saw warnings from the president before he was elected as the president of the United States, said that this was the biggest bubble that we had ever seen. You know, we can't avoid math. We can't avoid a reversion to the mean. We can't avoid rising interest rates. Look how things are collapsing now, and hints of a total real estate collapse because all of it's based on credit and low interest rates. I mean, rates are barely inching above 5% on a 30-year mortgage, and we are about to dive into oblivion when we're looking at residential and potentially commercial real estate here in the USA. It is a bubble. It is a hyper bubble. It's worse than what we had before. All you have to do is read what the IMF is putting out and the grave statistics that are ahead. And the bottom line is, it's the American people that are going to suffer. It's you tuning in around the world that's going to suffer if you don't take action. So please, for the love of God, self-direct your own investments if you can. If you've got that option. I know a lot of you do in government. I would highly encourage that. I would also take my course, How to Profit with Gold and Silver in the Coming Collapse. And I would consider taking 5, 10, 15%, maybe more or less, depending on your unique situation, and investing into hard assets prior to what we see going around in the world today, whether or not it's Venezuela, or we look at, classic examples like Zimbabwe with hyperinflation. I mean, this is happening all over the world right now. We look at the Weimar Republic, post-World War I, what really took off and became World War II as a result, again, of this extinguishment of wealth, of fake wealth, and an extinguishment of really debt, a Ponzi scheme. I mean, even Bernie Madoff has said this. And by the way, he's the only person that's gone to jail. He's just a scapegoat. None of the too big to fail bankers went to jail post 2008 and 09, by the way. But I mean, he's right about this. The whole U.S. government system, this socialization of America, modern day economics here in the USA is an absolute Ponzi scheme. And eventually it will collapse for good. We will revert to the mean, much like we did in 1929 with the Great Crash. Took over a decade, a world war in the name of World War II, and tens of millions of people dead as a result of those engagements. History doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but as Mark Twain once told us, it does rhyme. Take our course, click the link below. I love you. God bless. I will keep you updated on this epic biblical storm coming to the Florida Panhandle, of which will be the worst we have seen potentially in a century, if not ever. Put your comments, questions in the box below. Please share this video, and God bless each and every one of you tuning in. Thank you.